Godzilla and the MonsterVerse can't have a species. Or at least that's what the author of the last 3 MonsterVerse film novelizations, Greg Keyes, implied earlier this year in an interview with Goji Guy.
In writing some of these books, we would talk about Godzilla's species, and at a certain point, Toho asked us to stop doing that. I don't know why. I don't know what that indicates. I don't know what that means to them. But thinking of Godzilla as a species is apparently not the way we're meant to think about Godzilla.
But how can this be? How can Toho, after numerous films, comics, and books, suddenly force Legendary and the MonsterVerse to potentially retcon the entire Godzilla and really entire MonsterVerse ancient timeline as we know it? After plenty of research, I was unable to find a response from Toho on this matter, which means this is all still very much under the wraps. And while Keyes is an official and someone to respect in this line of work, make sure to remember that this is, at this point, simply his words and not 100% confirmed. Although after hearing the clip, I think we can all agree that the author was likely telling the truth, as he has no real reason to make up stuff on this matter. Toho has been under some fire lately from the MonsterVerse and Godzilla fandom for their rules with Godzilla that don't allow him to actively hunt and eat any humans or other wildlife, like a normal creature would. And of course, their rule on how Godzilla can never fully die unless it's implied that there will be a replacement like a son, or that he was in fact not truly dead. But those two guidelines are easily capable of being looked over and not causing any real commotion, but potentially all but erasing the bits of lore describing Godzilla having a species in the MonsterVerse is a much bigger deal, as it more or less destroys the King of the Monsters' intriguing origin story in this particular universe. Godzilla is a character with many origins, and many different stories to tell, but for the most part, he has always been a singular specimen, the one and only member of whatever he is. This has never been an issue for me personally throughout the franchise prior to the MonsterVerse. I love the Big G-Man being this unique godlike being whose existence could never truly be explained. At the end of the day, I was happy for Godzilla to just be there, something many of you can certainly relate to. But I was also one of those people that actually enjoyed seeing Godzilla have tons of offspring in the '98 film. And this emotion reached the next level when it came to the MonsterVerse, and the possibility that at one time in this universe there were multiple members of his species. Whether they were alive or not during the movies was irrelevant to me, just imagining them was fun enough. It opened up so many new avenues for a Godzilla story, one that didn't follow the same path as nearly every other Godzilla who came before, and there's a lot of them. We got Dagon, a member of Godzilla's species who was in the very first film, and had a whole story created around him that helped drive the lore home when it came to the Muto storyline. Back in those days, I found myself daydreaming about if Godzilla knew that Dagon was infected by the Muto Prime, and if he just stood there slowly watching helplessly as the last remaining member of his kind died a slow, agonizing death. Which Greg Keyes shot down real fast in his interview as well with this statement right here.
Does Godzilla, did he know about Dagon? Did he, know him in a sense? Kind of like a, yo, what's up, man? Friendly in a way?
I have no idea.
This all just harpens back to Legendary not going the extra mile for their stories in the MonsterVerse to feel connected. Having your book writer be so clearly out of the loop on this interesting dynamic is a massive dropped ball in my opinion. So does this mean that Dagon and all the other Titan remains that were clearly derived from a Godzilla species member in the lore are now no longer canon and said to be completely forgotten? It's sure looking that way. The MonsterVerse has consistently struggled with building a completely connected universe, with lore routinely being an afterthought or completely forgotten from one project to the next. And if this truly is the case, that Toho will no longer allow the MonsterVerse creators to create lore describing an ancient battle between Godzilla and Kong's species, no longer allowing characters like Dagon to exist in the lore, that's a bit of a bummer. And we can already start to see signs of this new forced rule showing up over the last 2 films and their extended media. Shimo, as you know, was a Titan who shared similarities with Godzilla and Godzilla x Kong the New Empire, but was clearly not the same species, not directly. If anything, we could simplify Godzilla and Shimo's biological connection to be something along the lines of that they were both unique members of a certain class of Titan. Like how a crocodile and a Komodo dragon are different, but they both come from the reptile line. But originally Shima was pitched to look much more like the Big G-Man, as we can see in this concept art for the beast. You can see that she wasn't exactly identical to Godzilla completely, but it was clear that they were the same species, like comparing a Mastiff to a German Shepherd. Both very different appearance-wise, but 100% members of the dog species. Titanus Doug fits here as well. All the talks about this lovable titan being a branch off of Godzilla's species are now potentially nothing more than fun fanfiction. And remember the infamous concept art depicting a flying Godzilla firing down below on a group of Kongs and Gojis? We may have finally gotten our answer to why this scene describing the ancient war in Godzilla vs. Kong was deleted and replaced with what we got in the New Empire. From a story describing a true massive interspecies war, to a story simply being about only one Godzilla challenging the Kong species. It's just a much less imaginative take on the ancient story and lore of the MonsterVerse in my opinion. One that doesn't allow much room for thought or fun to be had in developing a gripping origin story. I do have to quickly add that many of the other titans in this universe are shown as being the only ones of their kinds, so there is that. But we have to remember that this is only an issue regarding Godzilla, because it's changing something that was already established. Godzilla's story in the MonsterVerse could now very well be phrased as more of the same old, and this could be one of the reasons why Godzilla over the last 2 films has regressed into mostly being nothing more than an unrelenting force that has been sidelined to play the role of a dramatic plot point driving tool and not much more than that. I understand that Toho wants to ensure that the Godzilla legacy is not tarnished by some outlandish modern tale of their beloved character. But to enforce this, there can only be one. Policy on the MonsterVerse so far into its lifespan just doesn't sit right with me, and it doesn't help this universe. Sure, it helps make the individual Godzilla feel more special and truly godlike, but we already have 30-some films doing that already, and it was nice to have a completely different origin story for the creature. In the end though, things can change, and like I said before, I wasn't able to find any official remark on this matter outside of the words of Greg Keyes. But he's written the last 3 official books for this universe, so I think there's something to his words being accurate there. Moving forward with the MonsterVerse, I reckon we're going to continue to see Godzilla presented as a singular being with no family or species. But let's just wait and see. So you've heard how I'm not a fan of this potential change to Godzilla's story in the MonsterVerse, or that we're just not going to talk about what's already been established in the lore, just because Toho said so. And now I want to hear y'all's thoughts. I can't be alone on this. Anyway everyone, if you like this video and you want more like it, you know what to do. Subscribe, hit the bell, like the video, share it around, do all that YouTube stuff. As always, this has been Jacob, and I will see you in the next one.